welcome to
Live, Laugh, Love.
We've Got Cancer. Episode 11.
Episode 11.
We're going a little bit unstructured this week because we've had 2 weeks of just doing loads of stuff and loads of updates and loads of news. So it's kind of just probably going to be a little bit, what have you been up to, and also
Jess's what have you been up to could take over the full hour.
A long time.
We're going to try and squeeze it all in.
Yeah, we won't subject you to an hour of me ranting, but
people want to hear it.
There's been a lot going on.
And our very serious editor, producer, boss says that even though you're obviously all our fans, we must now call you our listeners.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bit of feedback there.
Bit of feedback.
So thank you, listeners, for bearing with us.
Thank you, listeners,
for listening
even when you hate us and when you're not fans. We love it. Okay, so
this week. The last 2 weeks.
So let's start with just what have you done this week that's not cancery, just nice?
Yeah, so I had a really good trip to London, which was really great. Stayed with my friend Becca. Shout out to Becca. And I really like to do all like theatre, artsy, exhibition-y things. So I went to a really good play called A Brightening Air at the Old Vic, an Irish play.
You recommend it?
A little family. Yeah, I do recommend it. It started a bit slow, but then by the end I was like, oh, just got me. So really, yeah, it wasn't like a big West End-y, musical-y, fancy one, but just getting a good bit of theatre in was really good for the soul. And then I went to an exhibition at the British Museum as well.
You're so cultured.
And I blitzed it because much as I do love Leeds, it's maybe not the hub of art and culture that I expect.
But Jess hasn't seen everything that goes on in Leeds.
I've never been to the theatre.
The Playhouse, we've got the Grand, we've got the City Varieties.
Yeah.
Bradford's got the Alhambra. We get loads of West End productions up in Bradford and Leeds.
So I need to do a bit more of that.
Yeah, there's loads.
Leeds
we've got an art museum up here.
I do love the Old Lady Cafe and the art museum. You know, it's
Tile Hall Cafe.
Yeah.
That's where me and you used to first hang out.
Yeah, I know.
It's like our original place.
Back in the day.
But London was good.
London was great, yeah. And I saw another friend, Dom, has just come back from the States. Shout out to Dom. I'm actually shouting out my friends now, I've been told. So
this will be
the
if you've seen Jess now and you don't get a shout out.
Yeah, it'll be awkward.
That will be awkward.
So Val as well. Shout out to Val. Saw her recently too. So caught up with friends. A couple of friends I didn't manage to meet, but hopefully I can go down to London and see them again. But it's just nice, I think, because I've been up here for so long. Treatment, not really done that much like fun stuff. Well, I have, but
yeah, no,
I like a bit of adventure.
She hangs out with me up here, but never mind. I'm not upset. Yeah, that's nice.
Change of scenery.
You'll get another trip booked in to see all the other people again soon.
Yeah, exactly.
You forget it's just not that like long and far away.
2 hours 15 on the train.
Yeah,
fine,
manageable.
Yeah,
and you got a good price.
Yeah, thank God, considering I booked it the day before.
Right, this actually leads all into your week.
Well, let's do yours though, because otherwise we'll just...
It'll be, okay. Mark and I went to Portugal, which was really nice. We went to Fishing Village, and it's really nice and kind of quaint, but really bustling at the same time. And I'm like, a little fishing village in Portugal on the Algarve. But it is full of like 4 Irish bars.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and there's a lot of English language speakers.
Okay.
So it's really nice, and it feels like I'm fully in Portuguese culture, and all the food's great and blah, blah, blah. But then when I think about it, I'm like, I was with a load of English speakers, and I avoided the Irish bars, but that's really where we were.
Okay.
But there was like yoga on the beach. How wholesome.
Ooh, that is really nice. Yeah, and you said that you guys properly chilled out this time.
Really chilled out. We swam, we walked, and we read books / Mark listens to music. That was nice. And then I went to see Beyonce.
Yeah, the Queen Bee herself.
Beyonce.
And you loved it?
I did love it. I feel inspired that I should be doing more with my life.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Like bring out a cowboy album.
Maybe. Bringing out something, this podcast. I'm going to get the
Okay,
posters
yeah.
printed.
Thank you, Beyonce, for helping our marketing.
You've inspired
Giving
me
us a boost.
to print some posters. Thanks, Beyonce. That's all thanks to you. So, yeah, it's been fun.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we have been busy. Lots of good things.
Lots of good things going on. But
Lots of
Jess has had
dun, dun, dun.
what we will call, could we call it the week from hell? Is that?
Well,
I don't think
we
that's
don't
an
want to
exaggeration.
jinx it too much, but it was a real shit one.
It was a shit
A
one.
couple of shit ones actually.
Yeah, they kind of all like merged into one prolonged period of crap.
Yeah.
But you actually, Trooper, like if someone had a really shit week, they might be expecting you to be on the floor right now.
Yeah, and I think I would have
about.
been if I hadn't have really scheduled in to do some fun stuff. I think if I'd have had to have cancelled the London trip and had a shit week, I'd have just been like a very different person right now speaking to you. But no, luckily I've managed to balance it with some like actual good stuff. So, God, where to start?
We need to go back 2 weeks,
Yeah.
and the first thing to say is at the beginning of this period, Jess was feeling well,
Yes.
feeling super well.
Yeah, so I was on my 2 weeks off chemo tablets, and they'd given me some steroids as well, which are a wonder drug. So I had loads of energy, loads of appetite, running about all over the place, feeling great, back to myself. And I hadn't realised how much the chemo had like wiped me actually. Like when you have the steroids and feel back better and things, it makes you realise that, oh God, actually the chemo was quite tough.
Yeah, it makes you realise that 100% that you were feeling was actually like 20.
Yeah. So then I got a random last minute appointment booked in, which I hadn't been expecting, and that is also like anxiety inducing
Because no one likes a last minute.
yeah, and I had the plan sorted. Like I was meant to have my chemo, 2 rounds of chemo, then I had the CT scan booked in for the Monday, and then I was meant to review that with my doctor like a couple of weeks afterwards, and then they randomly put an appointment in on the Tuesday, and I was like, okay, well this is unexpected, don't know what that's all about.
So to be clear, they booked the appointment before you'd had any scans.
Yeah,
Just randomly, there was nothing
no context,
and there was nothing new that they could have told you.
Yeah,
It wasn't like you'd had a blood test or a scan and you could have been told something new.
No. And I asked my nurse what it had gone in for, and she said she also didn't know. Maybe it was just like a checkup or whatever. And it was also with a consultant, which I don't usually see. My doctor, I don't know if you're not a consultant, you're a junior doctor.
Like a registrar.
Yeah. So it wasn't with him who I see for all of my like treatment plans and everything. So I was a bit like, what's going on here? And then got into the meeting.
Well, then you went in on the Monday and had your scans.
Oh yeah, I had a CT scan on Monday.
So that was fine. You knew the meeting coming up wasn't about scans because they didn't even have the results when they booked it. So you had your scan on Monday, and then you go in for this randomly booked meeting on Tuesday.
Yeah. And then they told me...
I want to add, I really want to build this up.
Go on then, build the suspense. Also in the interim, shout out to Mitch who came with me for my CT scan. My friend from Beijing came all the way to the Netherlands, from the Netherlands, just to come to a CT scan with me, because he's an angel.
Mitch, you're an angel.
It wasn't just for that. We had a lovely weekend together as well. God, that was another fun thing. Anyway,
Thank you, Mitch.
Thank you, Mitch.
So on the Monday, she goes for a scan with Mitch, great. And then on Tuesday, you go into hospital for an appointment with the consultant you've never met.
Yeah.
And you get there on time.
Oh, God, yeah. And then, we had to wait. So the appointment was meant to be at, I want to say 12, and we didn't get seen until 2 or 2:30, something like that. They had us waiting in the waiting room for like forever.
That's really bad.
It was ridiculous.
When you've got an appointment that you're already anxious for because it's not routine.
Exactly. And I bought my friend...
I hear a shout
Let's
out
just
coming.
name this shout out week. My friend Bex had come with me.
Hey, Bex.
She had booked time off work, like, or she'd rearrange her work schedule so that she could come in thinking it'll be an hour or whatever, and then she can get back to work. So there's me feeling like guilty as well for her, because they're just wasting her time. Like, what's the point in booking an appointment in if you're not going to stick anywhere near to the schedule? Like, I know they run on a little bit, but that is ridiculous.
There's a sign in the waiting rooms that say, if you've been waiting over an hour, then come and talk to someone. So they kind of put it in your head that you might be waiting an hour.
Yeah.
But it shouldn't be like coming up to 2, and it shouldn't be when you're having an anxiety-induced, non-routine appointment anyway.
Yeah. So then we finally get into the appointment, and it's with 2 doctors. So the one doctor, a woman.
I thought the consultant wasn't there at this point.
No, she wasn't, but she started the meeting, was like, right, I'll have a chat to you, and then we'll bring the consultant in after I've had a chat to you. So I was like, right, okay. And then she started the meeting saying, what do you understand is the context of this meeting? And I was like, lady, you tell me. You've got me here. You've made me wait 2 hours. I've no idea. Nobody knows. I didn't request it. My nurse has no idea what's going on. Like, why aren't you saying, okay, we've got this meeting because X, Y, and Z? And then she was like, right, okay, so you had the scan yesterday, didn't you? And I was like, yeah. And she was like, okay, well, the consultant has looked at it, so we can go through that if you want.
But before this, she was asking you about your chemo.
Oh, God, yeah. We had a 20-minute discussion about how I was going and what was, like, I was saying, you know, the nausea is really bad and the plan's not working, so we need to figure it out. And we went through each of my anti-sickness medications and how I can take them in a better way or adjust the schedule. Meanwhile, she knew the whole time that the whole her background information to this was that the chemo actually hasn't been working. So I'm not going to go on this chemo again. I'm not going to need the anti-sickness medication. So we've just wasted a whole 20-minute conversation about how to control my nausea when it's
for a
totally
drug that
irrelevant.
you're about to stop having.
Yeah, and
but
she knows that I'm going to stop
and
having
you've not
it.
been told that you're going to stop having it, so you think every little detail let me pass on.
Yeah.
Because it's really important, and all the time she's about to tell you, oh well, none of it matters anyway because you're not going to carry on.
Yeah. So
that was after a 2-hour wait, that was a good half an hour well
yeah, just
spent.
to make sure that everyone else in the waiting room is also significantly delayed by my mindless chat about all the various different drugs that I'm on.
And you are on a lot.
I am on a lot.
It's a long list.
Yeah, so then yeah, the big thing of that was that the chemo's not working.
So that is really the shit news.
That's the shit news.
That
of
was
the week.
big
From the fortnight.
big shit news, and that just kind of sparked thing after thing.
Yeah.
So you're still in, and were these the nurses you're in with?
No, this is a doctor.
Okay.
So she said, even though the CT scan hasn't been fully reported because you only had it yesterday, the consultants had a look, so we can discuss your results. And so I was like, okay, fine, well, I might as well find out. But that also didn't fill me with confidence, because I was like, surely it needs to be reported effectively. Like, how much can I trust these results if it's just like the consultant taking a look, not whoever actually needs to process it properly? But apparently it is reliable, so I was like, fine.
Great.
So then the consultant comes in, or she goes out to speak to the consultant. Unbeknownst to me, I think her actual motive of having the chat to me was to figure out how well or unwell I am, because now we need to make decisions about what my next line of treatment is, basically, and if I'm really symptomatic or really unwell with the fact that the chemo hasn't been working.
Oh, I see.
It closes off treatment options for me.
Right, okay.
So that was her real
goal.
motive.
And do you think that any of the treatments have been cut off based on what you said?
No, because I was saying, like,
And at the
the
time,
main side effects are just from the chemo itself.
At the time, you were actually pretty much asymptomatic. There was no body pain. It was like a bit of nausea and a bit of fatigue
Exactly,
and low appetite.
yeah.
And the steroids had helped pretty much all of those.
Yeah, so I've been telling how great I've been feeling. And she was like, well, that doesn't look like it on the scan.
Well, I've got a little surprise for you.
Let's just ruin your whole mood.
Let me tell you something. You think you know your body.
Actually,
We know
You
it
don't.
better.
So rubbishy news.
So
on the
then you she gets the consultant. The consultant comes in,
and then it's do you want to try clinical trials or do you want to do chemo? So that is kind of, I'm a bit in limbo, starting off the process for both of those decisions to be made at the moment. But they're basically like, there's no, if you want to do clinical trials, you can't be on active chemo at the same time. So I've done some blood tests this week. They're going to send it off, see if there's any relevant trials that I can be on. But in the meantime, I'm not having any chemo treatment, which is a bit unnerving.
It is unnerving, but we've jumped ahead. And also, don't be unnerved, because actually they also told Jess that there's been no treatment that's been working for her since November.
Yeah, I mean, technically, if my last 2 chemos haven't worked, then I haven't had any effective cancer treatment since November. That was the when everything got reduced and managed and happy times.
And actually, we think that maybe we never know. You never know. But all the stuff you are doing, the exercise which you are doing, the healthy diet which you are doing, maybe the Havikuhan drugs, which we'll talk about in another episode, but maybe the oxygen tank, maybe all the stuff you are doing is keeping some level of control. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's just a slow growing one.
We don't know. There's no way of knowing, because they never did any kind of testing at the start to figure out how fast it was growing.
Did they not? Did you not get a grade?
No.
But wait, your biopsy I got grade, but my grade in my first biopsy before surgery was grade 1, slow growing, and my grade from my whole tumour when it was taken out from surgery was grade 2, which is middle growing.
Oh.
So I don't know how accurate these things are. But I thought they
never graded me.
Did they not? Because they took a biopsy.
Yeah, they did, but they only did that to see about the mutations and like what treatment options I might be able to have.
Okay.
Maybe it's different in bowel cancer.
Yeah, maybe it was because they didn't know mine was stage 4 yet, so maybe that was a key part in finding out if it was going to spread, and then it was like, oh, it's already spread, so no one cares anymore.
I feel like I'm 50% being.
Do you want to shuffle this way?
Let's shimmy.
So what we don't want you to miss though is, so Jess was feeling really well when she was at this appointment. Physically, you were feeling great.
Yes.
But then she went to the appointment, and a couple of days later,
annoyingly, I started to get pain on my left side.
Did you know at this point about the diaphragm?
No.
Okay.
Well, yes, actually. God, it's all blurred into one big old mesh of trauma. But basically, I've now started. I had quite severe pain, which it turns out I already had a tumour on my left lung, but that seems to be growing as that's what they saw on the CT scan. And so it's kind of growing on or around my diaphragm, which means that it's irritating and causing pain. But basically, I had the appointment on the Tuesday, and then I think Thursday I went in with pain just to be checked.
Yeah.
And then, God, that kicked off loads more stuff.
So she'd had the appointment on Monday, she had a scan on Monday, appointment on Tuesday, back in on Thursday with the pain, thinking it would just be some painkillers, but your painkillers weren't really taking the edge off.
Yeah.
And then then on Thursday is when they were like, okay, we'll give you a double dose of morphine.
Yeah.
But they did check, so that this Oromorph drug that you're on, they give a certain amount.
Yeah, so I have been taking morphine for breakthrough pain, they call it. When it's
suddenly bursts,
and you just need something to take the edge off.
But
I'm like a druggie.
They do. You just know how it works.
Yeah, so I have taken, not loads, but I've taken morphine before, and for some reason, I don't know what happened, but I had some crazy allergic reaction. I've never had an allergic reaction to anything.
You haven't, but so what happened was they gave you the Oromorph as normal, and then Jess was still in pain, and normally they wouldn't give you Oromorph for another 5 hours.
Yeah.
But because you were in pain, they said we can bring it forward after 2 hours, checked with the doctor, everything was signed off, and it was that second dose.
Yeah.
That just after, you know what's
Heaven
coming?
forbid we
Heaven
mention
forbid.
the coffee.
A soy latte.
I had treated myself
How
to
dare you?
a soy latte from Costa downstairs whilst I was scooting about the hospital trying to kill time.
Yeah. It is the only thing to do, so fair enough.
And then, went back upstairs. The pain was kind of still getting worse and worse. So I was like, can I have some more morphine? They were like, fine. So then I had another dose, and then I reacted like my eyes blew up, my breathing went short, like I got a rash all over my body.
You said there was white gunk at your eyes.
Yeah, my eyes went all gunky. I vomited
Not
a couple
good.
of times. So I was like, went up to the nurse's station and was like, I don't really feel very well. I was like, I feel a bit queasy. I'm just going to go to the toilet. So she obviously saw me looking a bit like, oh God, Puffy McGee, what's going on?
Yeah.
Went into the toilet, was sick, and then when I came out, the nurse was there and she looked at me and she was like, I'm going to get the doctor. So then I had to be rushed into a little room. They gave me some adrenaline.
A shot of adrenaline, which is, I feel like that's a big deal that you got a shot of adrenaline. I don't feel like that's what they do for people.
Well, I don't know, I just assumed it was normal procedure.
I think it only happens when something really bad's happened. So I don't think that's great.
So then, I had some adrenaline to add to the mix of chemicals that they put in my body.
Why not? Throw it in.
And thank goodness it worked. And I kind of came back to normal. But then obviously I terrified everyone. So they kept me in hospital for like another 2 or 3 days.
They did. So then on the Friday, sorry guys, we've just had a complete
switcheroo.
Yeah, because the sun's creeping over to Jess, and we don't want her head to shine, and we don't want me to squint really badly. So then we get to Friday, and the doctors are going to give you, they called it the challenge.
Yeah, because they were so terrified at what they'd done with the morphine. Nobody really knew. They kept asking me like, are you sure, like,
they're sure it's the coffee.
How soon after you drank the coffee did you have the reaction? And I was like, I'm pretty sure it's not the coffee. I had loads of soy lattes.
When I was there, Jess was saying to the doctors, everyone is talking about this coffee, but it's not the coffee.
It's the fact that you've pumped loads of morphine into me within a very short space of time.
Yeah.
And they did say it was like, it might be a contaminated
batch. Which sounds really scary, but then when they explained what contaminated batch was, it's not as scary as it sounds. They said it might be when they take the Oromorph out of the bottle into the needle, that there's been like something's not being cleaned along the way, or something's touched something, and that's caused the issue.
Yeah, which seems very unlikely, but just about as unlikely as the coffee, so who knows what happened.
She's not giving up those soy lattes.
No way. So they came in, this nice doctor, you were visiting at the time, thank you very much. Shout out to Becky for coming into
Everyone you've shouted out is basically called Becky today.
I know, that's true.
Bex, Becca, Becky, we're all here. And Mitch.
And Mitch. And well, also shout out to all the girls who came in with me when I was in the hospital. I feel like I was in there for like 3 days maybe.
Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah, and I don't think I had a moment to myself in a good way for like the whole time.
And as soon as you had the really crappy meeting on Tuesday, your girls came round.
Yeah,
and
they
had
came
tea
over
with
for
you.
dinner, yeah. Lauren, another Becky. Stop, so many Beckys.
God, what a popular name.
Yeah, so actually, even though I've gone crazy with the shout outs, I've had a shit week, but actually I've been so lucky. Everyone, thank you so much for looking after me, because everyone really has.
That's so nice.
So they come in with this big old crash trolley, just in case I have another
Shots of
reaction.
adrenaline prepared.
Yeah. But it was quite good. We managed to have quite a good chat to there was a junior doctor and a nurse in there. So they wanted to give me oxycodone to check I didn't react to that. And then we waited 15 minutes, had a chat, gave me another morphine dose to check that I didn't react to that, which I didn't. Woo, woohoo. And so, yes, I'm fine to keep on morphining myself up to oblivion,
Excellent.
should I wish to.
And
But at the moment, I'm oxycodoning myself to oblivion.
which is still, isn't that still a type of morphine though?
Yeah, I think they're both opiates.
I think so too. And so then I think what's scary is that on the Tuesday and on the Friday after I left, you would then had to see palliative nurses.
Oh, yeah.
And this is where I think Jess and I really thought probably what everyone thinks, that palliative nurses are like end of life care.
Yeah.
And when a doctor just says you've got a meeting with palliative nurses, or they say I'm a palliative nurse, obviously panic sets in.
That's another like scary terminology thing, isn't it? Like when they talk about quality of life and making you comfortable.
Yeah.
So they said palliative care nurse, you're like, oh, but actually they are the ones that are like the pain management experts.
Pain management kings and queens.
Yeah. So
which does make sense for end of life. So the doctor actually said to us that the palliative care nurse would know more about your pain management than he would.
Yeah.
So when you were having the allergic reaction to the oromorph and oxycodone, but you didn't have the allergic reaction to that, but you were testing them all out.
Yeah.
And you were saying, but what are you going to do because I am in pain?
Yeah.
He was saying, you'll speak to palliative care nurses and they will know, they'll have access to more stuff, they'll have more understanding, and they'll be able to help.
Yeah, and also, spoiler, I never spoke to the palliative care nurses.
No!
And I still have not.
No!
I got so annoyed at the whole shit, like you've poisoned me at some form in this hospital, so stop making it more difficult for me. I just got to a point where the next day, so they did the poison test.
Yeah.
The next day they came round, that junior doctor that spoke to us, he was like, right, you'll speak to the doctor tomorrow, we'll put you on the slow release oxycodone, make sure you don't have another reaction, sort your plan out tomorrow, and then you should be able to go on Saturday. Got to Saturday, asked the nurse what time the doctor's going to see me. Sorry, you're not on the list to be seen by the doctor today.
Infuriating. Don't tell us that everything's going shit and quality of life and then lock us in hospital.
And waste my time. So it was just like disaster after disaster, like so much incompetence. And I'm not usually like it pisses me off that you have to get nasty with people to get things done.
Yeah.
Especially when it's not nasty, but I mean like you have to be a bit forceful and cause an issue to the nurses, because they're the only way that you can communicate with the doctors, and if the doctors haven't booked you in, then you just have to complain. And it shouldn't be that way. But it got to the point where I was like, I'm not just staying in hospital because nobody can sort out a pain management plan. Nobody, like the palliative care nurses are too busy to see me. The doctor hasn't put me down on the list to see me. I was like, it's ridiculous. So luckily, thank God, the junior doctor that was on there, different one.
Okay.
He came in at like 8 p.m. on the Saturday night, which was good. And I just said, right, let's just work this out together. You're going to give me slow release oxycodone. You can do, you can see how much breakthrough pain, because it's been administered from the nurses for the last 2 or 3 days that I've been in. Just use that, figure out how much I need, and then I can go tomorrow because I'm not staying in anymore. And luckily that's what happened, and touch wood, seems to be okay so far. But yeah, I'm still waiting to speak to, and keep ringing the palliative care nurse from the community, and she's not. Keep missing each other's calls, and she's not got back to me and stuff. So
it's just another hassle, having to ring and having to chase. And what did your discharge letter say?
I sent you a picture saying, "Yay, I've got a new cancer." My discharge letter was, the reason I'd been admitted apparently was from pain from my metastatic breast cancer.
Which Jess does not have.
Let's hope not. I don't know if they were just slipping that in to just tell me. By the way, you've got another primary. Yay! Saw that on the scan.
You could join the club with breasts though.
Mm.
It'd be nice of us together. So that's just annoying though, because it's like, come on guys.
Yeah, like just it was one of those times where every single time that they can get something wrong, they did it wrong. And you just have to be so on it with your own treatment plan, and you have to get feisty with the nurses to get anything done. It's just exhausting. So there we go, that's the rant.
It is
So
exhausting.
I hope you can appreciate it has been a really shitty 2 weeks.
It's been really shit.
So much incompetence. And that I didn't even mention. That before I'd even gone in for the appointment, I had 2 phone calls saying, one was like, you look like you're anemic, we've booked you in for some iron treatment. I was anemic in April and I'd already had the iron treatment, and I'm in the hospital every 2 weeks. Why are you giving me blood test results from 2 months ago?
Yeah, that's
so
bad.
Obviously wrong. And then I got called that evening as well saying, oh, your cortisol levels are really low. Are you on any steroids? Yes, you prescribed me steroids 2 weeks ago. I have been on steroids for 2 weeks. Why is none of this on my record?
But the thing is, it should all be on your record. But it really not. I feel like the trust is still there, but
Barely.
But you have to do so much of it yourself.
Yeah, honestly.
You have to trust yourself more than you trust the doctors, just to keep it all going and everything.
And I shouldn't be telling a doctor what to put on my pain management
You shouldn't have to tell the doctor what type of cancer it is that you're in for.
That's the key, isn't it?
I feel like that's
First
that's such an obvious thing that absolutely shouldn't happen. But anyway, how do you feel about telling the people about how it made you feel?
Yeah, fine. I just
I feel fine.
the rant has shown how much anger it has induced in me, and it just makes you feel very nervous because I'm in a well enough position at the moment, and I know what's going on, to be able to mitigate all of these multiple fuck-ups that have come my way. But I don't know what fuck-ups are happening in the rest of the system that aren't filtering down to me, and that's what makes me really worried.
Yeah, I get
because
that.
I'm like, how much of this has fed into my existing treatment plan that has got me to the point that I am now? Like, if something had happened differently, would I be in a different position now? And that's the scary thing.
Yeah, you're losing your trust. And at that point, I think you just have to request an appointment with the consultant and just for a chat if you wanted it. That's what I did with my big Dr. DJ. I'd be like, I just need to get all our ducks in a row. There's too many different voices. I just need to talk to you for my confidence that we all know what's going on.
Yeah, I think so.
Or book another private one in Christie's.
My appointment with my normal oncologist next week, I could delay that, but actually I'm just going to have it and talk to him about a bit more of this kind of stuff.
Dr. Death.
Yeah.
Just check
the Grim Reaper.
The Grim Reaper. So where Jess is now is she can have chemo, but there's this chemo there shitting on and being like, oh, it's a load of crap, is this chemo, but you can have it.
I can have it.
And then there is a drug which has not yet been approved by NICE, and NICE is the body, like in America, it's the FDA.
Yeah.
And it's not yet been approved, and because it's not yet been approved, Jess has to have all treatment that she could possibly have that exists before she could be prescribed this, which is why she has to have this chemo that they think will be shit anyway. So she can have this treatment, this chemo, they'll think they'll be shit. If this drug has not yet been approved or withdrawn, Jess can move on to this drug.
Yeah.
If it gets approved, she can stay on it. If it gets withdrawn, she can stay on it once she's on it.
But I have to be on it first.
If in the meantime she starts this chemo and the drug gets withdrawn, she can't then be prescribed this drug because it's gone. Now, so that's one load of thinking.
Like the chemo
drug
plan.
route. And that's a whole load of question marks just in terms of, and we'll come back to it properly, but I'm going to give you the other route first. But that brings up all the questions of, I want the chemo to work, but if it could end quickly, then I get to go on the drug.
Yeah.
Complex.
And we don't even know what the drug
is and what it does.
Works.
And also the doctors don't seem that happy about that one either.
Because they're negative about everything.
That drug costs, the drug that they're talking about, I googled it.
Yeah, you looked at it.
And it costs something like $6,000 per 28 days worth of treatment, and it's 3 weeks on, 1 week off when I had a look. So that's crazy. And then the other thing is Jess had these bloods for clinical trials, and it frustrated me because when we were in hospital I was saying, let's get those bloods done now. And
Yeah.
they said, but we're the clinic team, that's the clinical trial team. We don't work together, that's a whole separate team. Of course it is. So that's fine. So you went in to do that. But now they've said that you probably have to pick between clinical trial or the chemo route.
Yeah, I need to speak to the Grim Reaper about this next week, because it seems that I can't start the chemo route until if I want to start the clinical trial route. So I'd assumed we'll do the blood test for the clinical trial, see if anything comes up. In the meantime, I'll crack on with this next chemo.
Yeah.
That'll hopefully get things under control. But they were like, no, you can't do both at the same time. I think I have to be off treatment to enter into a clinical trial. So that's the scary thing, because it's a bit of a gamble for me now. I have to make sure that I'm well enough to be... The longer the cancer isn't controlled for, the more likelihood is that I would get some symptoms and things. And then that might cut off either of these routes anyway.
Yeah.
And yeah,
and
so
I think the problem is now is that you haven't spoken to Grim Reaper yet, but it's like, do you pick chemo and drug, or do you say let's go for the clinical trial? And we don't know enough about clinical trials yet, so we're not judging this on all gathered information. But what we do know is there's no phase 2 or phase 3 clinical trial available. It'll be phase 1, which means phase 1 is straight after animals. So it's every human gets the drug. There's no placebo group or control group, but it's about the toxicity of the medicine. So it's like, how much of this drug will impact a human in other ways?
Yeah, like, is it even safe for human consumption, really? It's like the first time it's ever been tested on a human. So it'll be about dosage levels, what are the side effects, is it tolerable? And so obviously you'd like to be on a later phase clinical trial, because at least it's gone through some kind of testing, and they're just saying, how do you do it in combination with other things, or what's the right dosage effect for people, or trying it with people with different groups. So yeah, I think in terms of how I'm feeling as well about the clinical trial stuff and this week, I think I've got to the stage now where it was so shit and so much bad news, and then I was sitting in the clinical trials meeting with the oncologist, and she was doing the typical thing that they always do, manage your expectations to such an extent that I literally said to her, does anyone ever even get onto these trials? Because the way she was making it sound, it was like, we'll take the bloods, but you might not be well enough at the time that your blood tests come back. There might not be anything that comes from it. You might not match with a relevant trial. So many things. And she was just going but this might happen. It all might be shit. And I was just in my head, thank God, a little voice came in, and I was just like, I'm just so done with your bullshit.
Yes.
I understand that you think that this is a terrible situation, but I just can we just have a little bit of hope? That's the thing.
And
they just will not give it to you.
They won't.
It's like they think that I'm going to sue them. I'll probably sue them for the mental health damages that they're doing with all this bloody mitigating my side, whatever.
Words.
Ah!
I feel that this is the annoying thing, where they are quality of life, but then they won't help you get the quality of life, because they say they just want to ruin your quality of life by either locking you in hospital or saying it's all shit and here are the palliative care nurses. Yeah. And it's you're telling me one thing, but you're also kind of really putting a lot of effort into making that the hardest possible thing to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But luckily for us, Jess has come out the most determined way I've ever seen you. I was a bit nervous when she first let me know. I was like, oh my God. And then you were like, so I've booked a PT, I've gone back to the oxygen tank, I'm getting back on the diet, I'm doing all of this. And I do think that counts for a lot.
Yeah, for some reason, I think just that little light bulb moment and the voice that came into my head, the pure volume of negativity and shit news this week, I was just like, I am sick of it. I'm done with it. And it made me more determined. Thank goodness.
Thank goodness for that. Well,
so, yeah.
And there's literally nothing more you can ask for than that to be your mental state after a week like that, because this is, and we know she hates it, but this is when people will be like, you're strong for pushing the determined part of your head towards it rather than allowing it to. Some people would say it'd be easy to allow yourself to be sucked into it all, but I actually think it's, for me, and I'm assuming for you, it's easier to stay strong and determined.
Yeah.
It feels very scary to actually allow the emotions come.
Yeah, and to think of like, I don't want to let any of the little spiral in.
Don't let it in.
No, I've just like packed my schedule. I like, now that the pain's under control, I still feel normal again, which is the weird thing. Like when they're saying that, you know, the cancer spread and things might not work and blah, blah, blah. And I've also always got to get my mindset back to the thing that we've always said, is that we're not fitting the stats. Like I've responded really well on the first round, responded really badly on the next 2 rounds. So there is no way of them predicting whether I'm going to respond really well or really badly.
It's a bit of a shit chemo. If it was that shit, the chemo wouldn't exist and they wouldn't use it anymore.
Exactly.
Some people respond to it. And the same with the drug that they're deciding whether to approve or withdraw from NICE. Look, it wouldn't have even got to that point if it didn't work.
Yeah, exactly. So it is just, that whole thing that we've been doing the whole time with the mindset of like, that is their belief, but it's not my belief.
We don't believe them.
I'm not just gonna, I won't believe it until it happens.
Yeah, and that's the spirit.
Yeah.
We love that positive spirit.
So, yes, I hope the rant hasn't been too ranty, guys, or too detailed, but there's been a lot that has gone on.
Yeah.
Real ups and downs.
But these are the real... we were talking about this as well, because obviously you get a lot of good news stories about cancer in the papers, as well as bad ones. And sometimes there's these complexities that only Jess will know, so people can say about clinical trials or stuff, but Jess knows that, for bowel cancer there's these clinical trials, but hers is actually a very specific mutation. It's a KRAS mutation.
Yeah.
So it's like, that's all very particular knowledge that means what you might just think you know because you have read, which is great, and done research, it's just different. And it's the same with the assumption that even we had, that it would be, okay, we'll try the chemo, try the drug, then off for clinical trials if we need to.
Yeah.
But it's all of this, no.
No, and the amount, I think that's what's upcoming that's probably making me a bit nervous, is the choices that I'm going to have to make. So I'm okay for the moment to wait for the blood test to come back, but the blood test will come back and say, here are a few clinical trials that you might be eligible for, and then I'll have to make a decision, and that's going to be tough because they'll be looking to me, and I'm like, I don't know. You tell me what to do.
You work in science and technology, and
I know, but not this kind of science.
No, it's very different.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a huge week. There's been a lot going on. A lot physically going on, like being shot with adrenaline, which now feels like a side thought, but actually that's huge. And a lot going on mentally. Yeah. A lot of mental thinking. But we've had a lot of fun and a lot of support from my friends. And you're going for a lodge night. Me and Jess are going to book a holiday. Yeah, we're going to get abroad for a few days. So lots to look forward to. Yeah, we've got to keep the fun things coming too, so that I don't go insane. Yeah. And just basically don't believe the doctors. Yeah. And it'll be fine. I feel like that's not safe to be saying on a podcast. Believe the doctors. Yeah, take their medicine, but be very suspicious of them all the time. Take their medicine, but don't take their bullshit. Don't take their bullshit, and always fight for your own corner. Yeah. Because I have much less dramatic than Jess, but I have the same stuff with you you guys have prescribed me this injection, but for some reason you really don't want to give it to me, so I'm just going to run around Leeds for the week, going to GPs and pharmacies of all different people to try and find it. It's a smaller example, but it's it just happens everywhere all the time.
So many fuck ups.
You do have to be in control and know what you're doing for yourself.
Yeah.
So we didn't know what to call this one because it is just Jess's week. So maybe we'll just call it that.
Yeah, maybe.
And then we'll come back to, we said we were going to do one on complementary
therapies, yeah, because I've gone very hard on looking after myself.
We'll do a bit more research on that and do a big one on that.
Yeah.
Maybe next week if there's not another big update from Jess.
Yeah. So thanks everyone. If anything wasn't clear, which I'd imagine some of it probably is, then just ask us some questions.
Yeah,
give us the feedback. We're open to it.
We're loving comments.
We love hearing from you.
Like and subscribe and do all the social media kind of jazz.
Yeah.
We love that. Thanks guys.
Bye.
Bye.